Hello, everyone. It's Russell. Welcome to the Reading Fabricator. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're reading lots of books. I've sort of put a pause on my Cormac McCarthy readathon just to read some other books, and one that I've thought I'd share for you today is called "Tender Is the Flesh" by Agustina Bazterrica. This is the first book I've ever read on a Kindle, actually. I picked up this Kindle because there's so many books out there where I just cannot track them down, or I can track them down on Amazon, but they just cost so much money, and it's just cheaper to do it this way, unfortunately. So yeah, this is my first time ever using a Kindle, and yeah, I used it for Tender is the Flesh. Probably the most disturbing book I've read in quite a long time. And I've read some pretty disturbing works, but this one here ranks up there quite highly. There are lots of moments throughout the book where my eyebrows were raised, and I'm just going, oh my God, imagine if this actually happened. I mean, it's a dystopian book. It's an Argentinian dystopian book. The author herself is Argentinian, and it's also got this sort of the speculative fiction type aspect to it as well. So it's we're not quite there as a society, but you could imagine this actually happening, and that's the truly disturbing part of it. Is that this is a scenario where in some awful, god awful way it could possibly happen in the near future. It reminded me a lot of Children of Men, actually. It really did. And in terms of novels, it doesn't remind me of anything else. It's basically a cannibalism book, really, a 200-page cannibalism book, and I really really liked it. It really piqued my interest all the way through, and it's not much of a plot, so to speak. It's more of a thing of ideas. It's just the whole idea of it is just imagine society if it was this way, where there's this virus that's contaminated all animal meat, making it just inedible. Humans cannot eat it, so they resort to breeding and selling humans, referred to as heads, as what they call special meat for consumption. Cannibalism is made legal. You can eat it in this society, in this near future, very dystopian society. It is not frowned upon. And man, just thinking about that really shocked me. But what shocked me most was how the author really goes into it. She doesn't use implication. She just outright tells you what's happening through various walkthroughs of this distribution center through the eyes of the main character Marcos, who is basically the right hand man of the owner of this distribution center. He's in charge of daily operations, and is in charge of supply and distribution of the meat to various places. And through his eyes, you see everything that happens inside this place. It is awful. The first instance you get of it is where he takes this, I think this buyer or this German buyer or investor, and he takes them on a run through the center. And as they go through different areas, the awfulness of the situation just gets worse and worse. And you think, how can it get any more worse than this? But it actually does. They talk about how these special heads are just put in separate cages. How some of them get sold off to these reserves where people hunt them down, and not just that, but they request like impregnated females because they're more aggressive, or healthy athletic males to make it harder for them to hunt them down. You've got bodies that get sent to butchers. There's one butcher he's quite fascinated with, and not just that. As they go through area to area, you just see how they go about doing their business. I mean, there's one section where later on in the book he takes these two potential job applicants on the rundown of how they do their work there, and they give you this instance of how you stun a human head before you go ahead and kill them. And with these job applicants, Marcos just asks the worker to demonstrate how they stun a head. Sergio enters the box room and gets up onto the platform. He grabs the club, then he shouts, "Send in the next one." A guillotine door opens and a naked female barely 20 years of age walks in. She's wet and her hands are held behind her back with a cable tie. She's been shaved. Inside the box there's very little space. It's almost impossible for her to move. Sergio places the stainless steel shackles which run along the vertical rail around the female's neck and clamps them shut. The female trembles, shakes a little, tries to free herself. She opens her mouth. Sergio looks her in the eye and pats her a few times on the head, almost like he's petting her. He says something to her that they can't hear, or sings to her. The female becomes still. She calms down. Sergio raises a club and hits her on the forehead. It's a sharp strike. So swift and silent, it's crazy. The female is knocked unconscious. Her body goes slack, and when Sergio opens the shackles, it falls to the ground. The automatic door opens outwards, and the base of the box tilts to expel the body, which slides onto the floor. And then when they go into the next room, they hang these bodies up, and then they slit the throats. And they do it in such a manner to keep the meat from becoming spoiled or anything like that, or keep the meat from becoming stressed. So, I mean, the way they handle these special meats is just like how they handle meat today, animal meat. And there's an element of capitalism that's in this book as well. And just, yeah, this is a society I just do not want to see ever happening. It's awful. There's truly disturbing stuff going on here. There's another section where they go into another room, and there are these workers who are basically barbecuing a kid, a breeded kid, and they're celebrating because even though they're barbecuing this kid, what they're celebrating is the fact that one of the workers himself has just had a child of his own. I mean, that just disturbed the hell out of me. It keeps on getting worse and worse. And a good, oh man, I'd say about 40 pages at least is dedicated to just describing how the process works in this center of breeding, of supplying, of preparing the meat. It's truly horrific stuff. And the idea of calling them heads because I don't want to call them humans. I mean, there's a great quote here in regards to that. No one can call them humans because that would mean giving them an identity. They call them product or meat or food, except for him. He would prefer not to have to call them by any name. So for the first 40 or 50 pages, it's all just given to you as to what the society is all about. And in that process, you also get given extra characters who show up through phone calls or through him visiting them. You got Don, who is his father, who has dementia and lives in a nursing home, who only he cares for. He's got a sister, Marissa, who's obsessed with climbing the social ladder. And there's an instance later on in the book when they're having a wake, and she's so busy trying to show off all her different meats and that, trying to climb the social ladder. You've got Cecilia, his estranged wife, who for most of the book they only communicate by phone, and it's very clear that a tragedy has happened, and you find out pretty early what that tragedy is, and that plays a huge part in the latter half of the book, with regards to this head that gets dropped off at Marcos's doorstep, and it's one of those things where you're allowed to keep a head, but you have to have someone to come and do an inspection of it to make sure that they're fine, and also that they're not engaging in any sort of sexual activity. To engage in sexual activity with a breeded head means that you yourself will be sentenced to death and get sent to the slaughterhouse. So it's a taboo subject that you cannot engage with these people, these animals, I guess you want to call them, in any way, shape, or form. But then something strange happens. He keeps this human head in the barn, but then from the midway point onwards, something truly shocking happens. I mean, my jaw dropped when that moment happened. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but needless to say, this is a 200-page book. It is incredibly short, but all the ideas and thematics that are tossing and turning in this thing, it could have easily been stretched out to 500 pages, easily. But what you got here is 200 pages of a real tight narrative. Now, the plot is lacking, I think, but that doesn't matter because this is a book of ideas and themes. It's not really a book of story. She just wants to show you a potential society, and nothing in this book is wasted. Everything is here for a reason. There is no filler in this story. It just keeps on giving and giving and giving. And on top of that, you also get these implications of things like India, who are selling meat on the cheap. And all of that resonates to today's society with regards to how the meat industry works as well. So there's a lot of parallels going on there. So this is a very prescient novel. And again, as I said before many, many times, it's disturbing. It really, really is. And the writing itself, I mean, there's nothing flowery or anything about that, but it packs a punch. It does exactly what it wants you to do. And there's only one other female author that I've come across who writes in this way. That author being the Mexican writer Fernanda Melchor, who did Paradise and the brilliant Hurricane Season. And I think she's got another one coming out in a few months called This Is Not Miami, which I'm really looking forward to. But yeah, I'm starting to find lots of female authors who are really just pushing the boundaries of almost like grotesque writing, who are becoming way better at it than male writers. Just yeah, they're just. I'm really excited for the way writers are heading to today, and especially this book here, which I mean I was a bit hesitant with to start with. I mean, the first 30 pages, I thought it was just doing it for shock factor, and it is a shock factor book. But there is reasoning behind it. So I was able to get on board with it and follow it through to its really, I guess you can call it semi-tragic, but also absolutely shocking and abrupt ending that involves the head that he keeps in the barn. Going back to when they're walking through the supply plant, there's a section where they walk through where the impregnated females are kept in cages and they have no arms and legs, and that's yet another section that absolutely shocked me. Here's the quote: "On the way to the exit, they pass the barn where the impregnated females are kept. Some are in cages, others lie on tables. They have no arms and legs." Absolutely shocking stuff. They cut the voice box out of all the heads so that it keeps them from basically just talking and becoming intelligent and learning, and just keeping them sort of at a dumb factor. And yeah, it's just, man, there are a lot of parallels to today's society with regards to the meat industry. I mean, this is a book that will put people into the vegetarianism. I'll tell you that now. But if anything, it made me actually quite hungry. It made me want to go and buy some pork. In terms of similes, there's not many in this book, but there's one that really stuck with me, and that was when he goes out to the barn and goes out to the sky and looks at it, all the stars and all that, and it goes, the sky is like an ocean that's gone still, which I really liked. I mean, I'm a fan of similes, so I can get on board with that. But then there's this crazy dream sequence, which I'm not going to read because it goes on forever, but it involves wolves, it involves all these things that's happened in his life just coming together at him. So there are passages of this book that go into great detail that aren't to do with the all the meat stuff that really resonated with me. And with the conversations he has with Cecilia, with the tragic relationship he has with his father, Don. I mean, it's very clear that Marcos is very disillusioned with the whole society as a whole. And especially after the tragedy that he had with his estranged wife. There's sections where he goes to an abandoned zoo and an aviary, and that his father was quite fond of birds. There's a shocking moment. It's probably the most shocking moment in the whole book that involves puppies. So I'm not going to spoil that, but it's one that I've read in some Goodreads reviews where people said it threw them off the book entirely. Like, it was very unnecessary. I can see why it's considered unnecessary, but I guess it's there for a reason. But I mean, if anything, this book has a real mean streak. Um, like, there's no happiness or goodness in this book at all. It's a very mean spirited book. But I guess that's the point. It shows where society is heading, and really opened my eyes. Yeah, this book is the very definition of packing a punch. It hits you hard. It hits you hard. It's a quick book to get through. I did it in a couple of days, and so can you. But you will be shocked by some of the stuff that you read in this book, in particular sections that involve these scavengers, these poor people that live on the outskirts of the supply center, and they eat all the remains that get thrown out. And there's a section where they try and where they basically ambush a truck that's supplying heads, and it turns into this like frenzied orgy of blood and flesh where they're just ripping arms and heads off these breeded humans. It's told in such a fashion that it reminded me of that scene from the vampire movie Daybreak, is where the vampires and the soldiers are all in this clash, and they're just all these limbs being torn and that sort of thing. Very detailed and very descriptive, and it's very vivid in your mind. And so there's just, yeah, there's not much niceness, I guess you could say, about this book. It's just it details the horrors that we can go as a society with regards to capitalism, and yeah, I liked it. I liked it a lot. But if I had to pick one favorite moment from this book, it would have to be this. This is about the halfway point of the book. He goes out and lies down in the grass beneath the silence of the lights in the sky, millions of them, frozen, dead. The sky is made of glass, glass that's opaque and solid. The moon seems a strange god. That's my favorite part of the whole book. And I don't want to say any more because, as I said, it's a very short book, so it's very easy to spoil it. But the second half of the book truly, truly shocked me. I did not expect that happening at all. And for those of you that have read it, did you expect that to happen? Because I sure didn't. It really, really took the breath out of me. I remember reading from the Act 2 onwards and going, wait, what happened? What's going on here? So, and especially that abrupt ending, the absolutely abrupt ending where I actually flipping through the pages on the Kindle going, wait, that can't be the end. And it's been a long time since I've read a book where it's made me do that, where it's made me flip back and forth going, wait, have I missed a page? Is there something going on here? And what it's made me want to really do is actually go back and reread it because I'm pretty sure I missed out on some stuff. But based on what you've heard me say, there's some truly eyebrow-raising stuff, and it will make you think. That's the purpose of a book, I guess, is to make you ponder. So for the last couple of days, I've been just thinking about this book in great detail, and there's only one other book I can think of that's really drilled itself into my head and stuck there, and that would have to be Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. I'm drawn to the books that push the boundaries, and this is one that pushes boundaries, I think. It's not controversial in any way, shape, or form. I just like the way that it just provokes you with its ideas of speculative fiction and of a dystopian future that you do not want to see ever happening. But it could happen, and that's a shocking thing, especially with regards to the whole virus aspect of this book. And this book was written, I think, in 2017 before the COVID pandemic. So it can be seen as a bit of a relevant idea or relevant book to today's society. At least that's what I think. Tightly plotted, well written, but it's the ideas and themes that will stick with me the most out of this book. That's where the strong points are, I think. I really, really like Tender as the Flesh. It's not my favorite book of the year, but it's a thought-provoking one. It makes you think a lot, and I'm glad for reading it. Thank you very much, and see you on the next one. Bye.